You're listening to the WCHE Morning Show on 95.3 WCHE.
County farmers on the air today, talking about what they do in their special way. The future of the farmer affects us all. Be sure to buy them.
And welcome back to the WCHE Morning Show. I'm Eric Lambera. Co-host today is Barry D. Next up is our weekly segment on farming and agriculture. Each week we'll hear from farmers, conservationists, homesteaders, and others to discuss the topics that are important to them and the residents of Cheshire County. Joining us today for this segment, we have Ed Hines. A little bit about Ed. He is a medically retired Marine, was a boat rider, an Iraqi war veteran, and did counterterrorism work. Also in the Library of Congress as part of the Veterans Oral History Project. Ed, good morning and welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Good to have you on the air.
Why do we need his voice on the air, not mine? Good, doing well. Hello, Ed. How are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good. How you doing, Barry?
Oh, I can't complain. What do you got for us today?
Today, I think we're going to be talking about food security and agricultural security as part of farming.
I love
from the perspective of the Department of Homeland Security, military, and the intelligence communities.
Nice. Yeah. What do you got there, Eric? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess to kind of start this off, I'm sure you have questions. So why don't we kind of go there?
Okay.
Yeah, so I had a few questions. So I'll start off. The first question I had for you, how does a strong domestic agricultural base contribute to national security overall? Do you have some insight on that?
Yeah, so by domestic agricultural base, meaning that you have to have control over your food, your food chain, your food production capacity. In 2021, the Department of Homeland Security launched what was called an analytic exchange program. And what this program was a multi-agency partnership of analysts from across the spectrum of public and private sectors to analyze the food and agriculture sector. And they deduced that it accounted for about 20% of the national economy. So that's 1 in 5 of every bit of the national economy that you want to assign to that metric, and has been designated a critical infrastructure sector by the Department of Homeland Security. The sector consists of an extensive, open, globally interconnected, diverse, and complex array of privately owned, quote-unquote, just-in-time networks, and encompasses a variety of goods and services, including the production, manufacturing of crops, livestock, poultry, seafood products, and byproducts. Byproducts is something that you need to kind of home in on because that's a shorthand for things like viruses for the production of bioweapons, which obviously was in the news a lot lately with COVID-19. As such, the threats to food and agricultural resources will come from various sources, including foreign and domestic events, naturally occurring and or human-induced, and the interdependencies of food and agricultural sector and with other critical infrastructures. And so, given the broad scope of these threats, they deduced that there were this team that they put together, the Threats to Food and Agriculture Resources team, focused on 2 problem areas: a critical need for public and private partnership model risk-based framework centered around food and agricultural information and intelligence sharing for better research coordination, and a critical need for concerted national and international efforts to detect and prevent the transboundary spread of known or unknown and naturally evolving or synthetically derived pathogens that are catastrophic to the agriculture and food industries. This is another reason that you're seeing a lot of these crackdowns coming in the form of immigration, is because a lot of people are could be bringing in foreign pathogens that are soil-borne that can absolutely devastate the local agricultural economies of the United States.
Interesting. So a couple more questions on this topic here. In times of war and crisis, how do food shortages or supply distributions affect morale and effectiveness in the armed forces?
It depends on how bad it gets. Because if you have a problem sourcing your own food, if it gets to the point where it's that bad, morale can take quite a bit of a hit. So, for example, just to give you an example of this, when I was in the Marine Corps, we would conduct boat raids. And a boat raid takes about 48 hours from start to finish between prep, conduct of the raid, and then return and recovery. In that time, I would burn anywhere from 8 to 12,000 calories.
Not doing that with snack bars, are you?
No. So if you're burning through that many calories doing a clandestine landing and withdrawal or an amphibious raid at night, you're burning through a lot of calories. So if you've ever had, say, a business meeting, right, where you've sat down, one of the reasons why they always conduct business meetings around food is because your body will reward you for doing certain things that are conducive to survival. Food, eating is one of those. And so that it puts you in a better mood and it makes you more receptive to certain things that may happen, that may be requested during that meeting that you normally wouldn't ordinarily agree to. Let me think, if you go into a business meeting and you're hungry and you're what they call hangry,
yeah,
you're probably not going to be terribly receptive to whatever's being presented on the opposite side of that table.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sit down and you have a nice steak with maybe a glass of wine or whatever it is that tickles your fancy, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, what up? Here, take $50,000 of my money and go blow it in Vegas.
You know what I'm rewarded with when I get a nice meal? A nap. That's what I want.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. So, but as far as morale, yeah,
sure.
Morale, giving good food is definitely a huge morale boost, and it was used actually pretty frequently when I was in, whenever they had bad news for us. So it was kind of a shorthand in the military that if you get steak and lobster for a meal, everybody was kind of like, uh-oh.
You may not be coming back. Here's some steak and lobster.
Might be some trouble. So
you're gonna.
Yeah, it's like the Simpsons meme with Ralph, the kid that's like, I'm in danger.
Right. There are certain flags you have to watch. If the Navy is coming in to cater your next meal, yeah, you better be concerned because they have the best food.
we might have a problem here.
Anywho.
Yeah.
And so the next question I wanted to go over to, so as far as, and you touched on this a little bit, but if you just had additional insight, so how does agriculture affect troop readiness?
So there's actually a segment of the United States. I'm going to speak from the perspective of the Marine Corps and the Navy because that's what I'm familiar with. Mm-hmm. But the Army is probably the bigger parent in the room of this because the Army has far more resources than the Marine Corps does. But there's actually a branch of the government that deals with food production, and they're the ones that are responsible for producing the meals ready to eat, which are the military rations that you get in the brown tan plastic wrapping.
MREs.
We had all kinds of name for them. Meals refusing to exit. Meals. You could fill in the name because they were designed to do certain things to your body.
And high caloric intake.
Yeah, I think each one had something like 2,500 calories in it.
Yeah,
on average. So, but as far as readiness is concerned, we use a lot of what are called maritime prepositioning ships. And what these do is these are basically operated by the Merchant Marine and the U.S. Navy and other entities. And they position them around the world to act as a kind of a mobile supply chain to get wherever we need. So in ancient Rome, for example, you had Rome built roads everywhere they went, but everywhere they went was essentially over land. It was through Europe, mm-hmm. right? So if they wanted to get everywhere, they had to have lanes of travel. And that's what they did. They built roads everywhere to expedite travel everywhere. And the real winner in any war, there's an old saying. It says, amateurs study tactics. Newbies, or learners, the adept will study strategy or whatever, but professionals study logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to get your people wherever you need them, you need to be able to project your power. Well, the United States waterlocked essentially from the rest of the world. And so if we're going to move troops, materiel, food around the world, we needed to have roads that could float. And so we built huge ships. And so this is how you get your agriculture. Another thing about it, and I'm glad you kind of brought this up about readiness, is tied to food security. Is during World War I, the United States purchased a lot of beef from Mexico.
Really?
And right, we did. And during that war, the United States paid a lot of money to Mexico. Well, the problem with this is that Mexico said, look, we're going to take this money and we're going to build a railroad system. U.S. said, great, you should do that. And they said, but we're only going to build it from our stockyards where we have the cattle to get it to the coast so we could sail it over the Gulf of now America. And they said, well, no, you shouldn't do that. You should build an basically an intercontinental railroad all over Mexico, because when the war ends, essentially, we're going to cut our contracts with you because we're going to be cutting the military, which is what happens after every war. You have a drawdown, you have a force reduction.
But you have a brand new shiny transportation system
that is sending beef to nowhere. But if you build the railroads all over Mexico, then you will have an actual intercontinental system that can connect the rest of your country and
increase commerce,
circulate your products. Mexico didn't do it. They built the railroad from the stockyards to their coast, and when the war ended, it was virtually they couldn't use the railroad for really anything at that point. So,
wow.
I mean, if they were exporting beef, maybe, but I can't imagine you could send it very far, because refrigeration I don't think was anywhere near what it needed to be at that time. But
no.
The point being is that food is always a major concern. If you want to get a good idea of how this can play out in real life, there's a very good movie you should go watch. It's called The Good Shepherd, and it's about the birth of the CIA, the early years of the CIA between the end of World War II and the early Cold War up until about the 60s. And there's a scene in it where Matt Damon plays this character who he's actually representing in real life. The real life character he's representing is a man named James Jesus Angleton. And in the movie, James Angleton is responding to this communist uprising of agricultural workers in, I think, Central and South America somewhere. And it's on I think it's on a coffee plantation or something. It's some kind of a plantation. They're growing something. And the uprising is it's called AstroTurf. It's a fake uprising, right? It was instigated by communist forces. And so Matt Damon's character goes to this professor of entomology at a university. He says, hey, if I want to destroy these kinds of crops, what kind of insects do you recommend I use? He says, use this. That'll get the job done, guaranteed. So he gets 2 or 3 planefuls of these insects, and he just carpet bombs all of these crops with these insects.
Yeah.
No more reason to rebel, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the idea. That's the kind of organic threat that you can do to damage that you can do to a nation with, say, agriculture. And if you need a more modern, contemporary example, you need look no further than the drug war.
That's true. That's true. As a matter of fact, the CIA used to do that. They used to raise hell down in Cuba. They would they would tie a string to the tail of these feral cats that they'd catch, and they'd soak it in like diesel fuel or something. They'd light a string with a rag on it that was further back. They'd light it. The cat would see the thing on fire behind him and run through the sugarcane fields, because that was their big profit, their big product. And every time the cat would stop to rest, he'd look back and there'd be a fire behind it. He'd take off again. And of course, it went out when the string finally burnt. But they would destroy the crops doing that. It's crazy. Yeah.
There was a lot of different techniques and methods, but the point being with agriculture, is that you can cripple a nation pretty quickly. In professional studies of Department of Homeland Security Studies. There's an old saying I was taught when I first started reading about this stuff when I was in grad school. And the saying goes something like, we are no more than 3 missed meals away from complete anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a timeline, is what that is. It's basically saying, okay, you have this much time before you start seeing widespread destruction. Now, I don't mean like when New York has a blackout and you see looting.
Mm-hmm.
That's fairly isolated in terms of pockets of the city, and it's usually quelled pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking whole states at a time will start to just lose their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens to be a true statement. But during World War II, as far as security is concerned with food, is everybody, if you only have a half acre, or even if you just have an apartment with a flower box outside your window or something, you should grow something. Grow tomatoes, grow corn, grow something you can eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you have something. If you have more land, maybe you have a home of your own with a quarter or a full acre or something like that. Get some chickens. That way you can have fresh eggs and maybe eat a chicken every now and again. But you need to have something in hand that isn't reliant upon an external source that can be threatened.
Yeah.
During in ancient Greece, there was a battle, and I can't remember the name of the battle. I think it was one of the Peloponnesian Wars. But Sparta seized a major area where I think the Athenians had grown most of their food, and they occupied it. It didn't end the war, but it definitely put the opposing army on their toes. And probably the reason it didn't have as much of an effect as it would have today is because back then people probably knew how to grow their own food or fish from the ocean, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so today these are useful skills that you need to have. And there are a number of places that will teach you how to do these things, to plant crops and what you can grow and what you can't. Holly Hollow Farm is one of those places. Jenny is a great resource for information if you need. She can definitely teach you anything you need to know about planting and growing, mm-hmm. As well as animal care. She's cared for animals since God was a carpenter. I mean, she knows all there is to know about horses. She's forgotten more than most people will know, mm-hmm. and she's definitely your go-to girl for that.
Contact?
Yeah, but yep.
What's the contact information?
Her contact information is if you go to the Facebook page and you go to Holly Hollow Farm mm-hmm. on Facebook. It's located in Modena, near Coatesville, PA.
Prestigious Modena.
There we go. So, Ed, I really appreciate your time this morning. Great topic and some great insight on that. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.